Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Monday, March 2nd, 2020. Thank you for tuning in for the evening edition of the Grand Solar Minimum. Let's go ahead and get right started at the space weather news. So far, our solar winds are coming in at 428.8 kilometers per second with a density of 8.8. Check out our sun. It is spotless now 29 days in a row. That's 45 days for this year of 2020 without sunspots. This website is ran overseas, so it is already Tuesday in their time zone, which right now we are qualifying as the 29th day in a row without sunspots. 45 days this year equals 73%. So solar minimum conditions are alive and well, folks. KP indices have been unchanged from this morning of a 1 and a 2. And as far as solar wind stream that was expected today, that has came. It is now subsiding. We had a peak of 500 earlier today. Actually, solar wind speeds reported at 508.8. That was the peak of this increase from earlier today. But nothing as far as storm levels, nothing like that. We did reach a KP of 4 for overnight last night, but nothing storm levels or anything to speak of. So let's go ahead and get right into the show tonight. Let's start over at thewatchers.news. As always, southern Brazil shivers through record-breaking rare summer cold. The city of Joaquim, in Santa Catarina, southern Brazil, recorded its fourth frost of the summer in 2020 in February. According to the municipality online agency, this was also the second cold blast in the country for the month, which is considered extremely rare, guys. And remember, it's still summer, so the cold is starting to arrive a little bit early down south. The record was registered at Val de Camhanos de Neve, which was about 2 miles away from the municipality center. According to the Kaiser Station network, the coldest temperature in the area plummeted to 35 degrees Fahrenheit, with the coldest temperature in the state being 33.6 in Europemia. This was the second mass of cold and strong wind in the month of February, which meteorologists considered to be extremely rare. In the Florianopolis, February was the second coldest on record, beating the previous record of 13.7 degrees Celsius, which is 56.7, set back in 1987. The dry and stable air in that influences the sectors of the west to Serra provides milder minimums varying between 9 to 16 Celsius, which is about 48 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And it was little higher than in the east of the state, cold and humid air, he added, along with minimum temperature map of Santa Catarina. So rare cold in South America. It's still their summer, the tail end of it, nonetheless. And while we're talking about Southern Hemisphere summers, well, let's talk about this story here in Australia's wild summer weather ends with snow in Tasmania. After a summer of extremes, from thunderstorms and hail to dust storms and wildfires, the dramatic season in Australia finished with a blast of snow in Tasmania, which started on Wednesday, February 26th of 2020. Summer has officially ended on Saturday, February 29th, but in its tail end, snow has fallen in the state's mountainous areas, and meteorologists warn more could fall around the 3,200 feet elevation in parts of the state, including Mount Field and Mount Wellington. Although snowfall can occur year-round on Tasmania's mountains due to blasts of cold weather coming in from Antarctica, forecasters said it's not really expected during summer. So rare cold in South America, now more rare cold here in Australia. From January 31st to February 3rd, the island capital Hobart went from scorching 104 degrees Fahrenheit to 30.2 in one weekend. Let's back this up, folks. All right. 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and then in 24 hours, the temperature dropped to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. That's over a 74-degree temperature drop in just 24 hours. Welcome to the Grand Solar Minimum is all I got to say about that. All right, let's take a look at another article here on Watchers.news talking about more cold. More than 55,700 livestock perish in extreme winter weather in northwestern Mongolia. Severe winter weather, also called the Zud in Mongolia, has killed the more than 55,000 livestock animals in the northwestern province of Kosovo since 2019 is when they started keeping tally on this. The Agriculture Department reported on Monday, March 2nd, 2020. In a statement, the department said that a total over 55,000 livestock animals have perished in 11 administrative districts in the Mongolian province since late last year due to the harsh winter conditions. Moreover, heavy snow battered the province 16 times since the start of November. Relevant provinces, organizations, together with the Agriculture Department, have been providing grass and food to local herders, either at discounted prices or without charges at all. As of December 2019, Mongolia had a livestock population of 70.9 million. So that tells you right there that was a very low number of perished animals, but still, nonetheless, tell that to the farmers who depend on that for their income. Livestock farming is the main source of the country's national economy. Roughly 40% of the nomadic population depend on it for their household income. In January of 2020, the National Agency for Meteorology and Environmental Monitoring reported that more than 50% of the overall population is at risk in this year's winter. This prompted the Mongolia Red Cross Society to activate its early action protocol to be completed by March 8th, which was aimed to support provinces by providing cash assistance and livestock kits. In addition, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies also pre-agreed to release a total amount of $217,000 to the MRCS. And staying on the Watchers.news here, Storm Jorge lashes flood hits parts of the Ireland and UK after wettest February on record. It could be Jorge, it could be George. So let's just say let's go Storm George. How about that? Flood-stricken areas in the UK and Ireland face further disruptions after Storm George brought heavy downpour and strong winds on February 29th. Amid the extremes, the Met Office also announced that the UK just saw its wettest February on record and fifth wettest of any month on record. For the UK, this winter is thus far the fifth wettest and fifth mildest winter season ever. It's shocking, isn't it, Bella? I know. The worst hit places were Ironbridge and... Hold on a second. All right, now that I got the puppy settled here, the worst hit places were Ironbridge and Bewdley along Severn River in the West Midlands, as well as West Cowlick and Lidgate in the East Yorkshire, England. Emergency teams had to prepare damaged flood barriers in parts of the West Midlands. MP Andrew Percy met with the environmental agency officials on Sunday, March 1st, and appealed to the government to review their allocation for flood defense budget. Says we live in a flood risk area, but there's no precedent of it in this area. There's no record of flooding in this area, says Percy. There has been a record level of rainfall, but it's becoming more normal, and we need to look at how we need to manage flood resources in this country. He added the government is going to have to do a full review on how we deposit flood defense resources. It's unfortunate, but the changing weather is now making governments all over the world start to rethink their budgets on how to handle this sudden change in their atmosphere, their climate, and their surroundings, physical landscapes, floodwaters. I mean, all year long in 2019 and 2020 so far, that's all we talked about is flooding. Now, I know that around October, November, I said that this winter was possibly going to rival the 78, 79 winter. I'll give you some thoughts on that here just in a minute. But what we did see this year in the Northern Hemisphere, we still got plenty of snow. We're still above average on the snowfall, the snow mass for the Northern Hemisphere for this winter. But we did see a lot of flooding worldwide, not just here in the States, but in the UK, in the Middle East. We saw flooding everywhere. Indonesia, India. I mean, there wasn't a corner. Japan, China, even in Iraq, Iran, Turkey, Syria, Lebanon. I mean, they got both of the best worlds on snow and floods. So GSM conditions were more than in effect this year, folks. It's just because I've said this over and over again. You got to look beyond your window of your backyard because this stuff is all over the world. The signs are there. We've seen the conditions this year. And right now, with the solar activity being low, I'm convinced that we're still in a deep solar minimum. Now, we'll be talking about Roy Spencer's temperatures. In fact, let's jump right into that, actually. Today it came out. So February is now sitting at 0.76 degrees Celsius. And you're thinking to yourself, what are you talking about, Jake? Grand solar minimum, my butt, right? Well, let's remember something here. And a friend of mine on Facebook and a community member here, Scott Rose, pointed this out as well as Roy Spencer. But this is the warmest monthly anomaly since March of 2016, which was 0.77 degrees. And the warmest February since 2016 when we had that peak of 0.86. Now, both of those temperatures were due to El Nino warmth. Continuing weak El Nino conditions are also likely responsible for the current uptick in temperature, as I recently demonstrated here. And Roy breaks it down. He shows us what temperatures were, pretty much in all parts of the region. The Arctic, believe it or not, coming in with the lowest number here. They did not see any warmth. They only added a 0.02 degrees Celsius above baseline. So not a lot of scorching heat, but this is lining up to the incident that we had in February and March, where we had 0.86 and then 0.77. So do we see another spike in temperatures next month? Well, there's a couple of factors that are going to be happening here over the next several months. And the one factor that's important to know is that we have been told that we are favoring La Nina conditions coming up in the near future. So we have that. And then on top of the La Nina, but we also have where we are in our planetary alignment, the orbit, the approach to our sun, how far away we are now moving away from the sun. So in other words, it's going to restrict summer ice disappearing this year, that we should see continued trends in sea ice strength in the Arctic, which I know it's only March, but I'm going to go ahead and follow the trends here, that by the time we get to November of next year, 2020, of this upcoming season, I should say, that 2020 and 2021 are looking at to be a very snowy scenario. So is it possible that we hit this pause in this cooling trend over the last 3.5 years? And now that we've peaked once again due to this El Nino cycle, which, mind you guys, when we started paying attention to this UAH, Mari and I, it was in the month of March of 2016, April 2016, noticing that we had a peak and we just got through an El Nino. So look what happened from the March situation of 2016 and where our temperatures dropped. So now that the peak is lower than 0.86, let's just assume that the 0.76 here is the peak of this temperature spike, all right, in the UAH. So now do we see temperatures dropping lower than what they were from the last El Nino? Let's see right here. This is the last El Nino from 2015. And we had a pretty decent drop all the way down, almost just about a 0.1 degree above baseline by 2018. So a lot of us that were doing this for the last 2 years, like, all right, yep, we're cooling. That line's not going back up, blah, blah, blah. But then Joe Bastardi, about a year or so ago, said that he believes, and this was when we were right about here, he believed that this would be the new plateau of warming. And I'm saying, you're crazy, Joe. Look at that. The temperatures are going to keep going down. And then they shot back up. And now look, guys. If we see temperature drop in March and April and May and June and on and on and on with La Nina conditions developing, well, Joe is right. Look at this. This is where he called that this next warming plateau. Now, my question is since we peaked here, are we going to start seeing the downtrend of in 3.5 years? Are we going to be below 0.1 baseline and then spike up again right before we head into our next deep minimum cycle in 2028? I don't know. But if you follow graphs and charts, it is intriguing, and I'm glad I saw Scott's explanation, because when I saw this today, I'm like, how in the world are we warming? We're in grand solar minimum. We have lower solar activity conditions. We have lack of sunspots, all this stuff that's taking place right now. But we also have to take in consideration of, ocean warmings, and El Nino was relevant, and the consistent weak El Nino conditions that we've seen from that region, temperatures ranging from 0.38 to 0.5. So that region 3-4 is still performing with weak El Nino conditions, but that will change. And with that change, we will also see temperatures trending towards downward once again. I'd be super shocked if it went above 0.76 for March, the month of March. However, that is possible. But I also said that I expected not just a warm month in March, but that mild spot where it's not going to get too cold, it's not going to get too warm, it's just going to be uncomfortable enough to say, yeah, it's not quite spring yet, but still average temperatures on the way. But my question is, what are we looking at heading into the spring and winter and fall and winter of 2020, 2021? And I believe, like Scott Rose believes, that this summer, because of what we're looking at right now and what we know it's on the way, we could see a milder summer here in the U.S. and other parts of the Northern Hemisphere moving forward. I didn't hear a lot of records being broken in the Southern Hemisphere for this summer. So, yeah, we had some hot days in Australia. We had a really bad heat wave once or twice, but I didn't hear the roof being blown off for all the records that were happening due to heat in the Southern Hemisphere during this last summer. So usually they say whatever you see during their seasons is what's to follow for yours. So if that's the case, we could get a heat wave, 1 or 2, and then have relatively average temperatures for the remainder of the summer here in the United States. And the last day of summer in Australia ended with snow in Tasmania. So think about that. Is that what we have to look forward to this summer? We already saw 4 feet of snow in September of 29th, 2019 in Montana. So will we see that repeat of not just a 4-foot snowstorm, but maybe more widespread areas getting summer snow to end the summer? We'll have to wait and see. Back to the headlines real quick. Wyoming I-80 is shut down Tuesday after a 100-car pileup kills 3 people. This is the second time in recent weeks that we've talked about I-80. But listen to this. I-80 has been closed now 54 out of the last 152 days, guys. 2 crashes involving 100 vehicles have killed 3 people and shut down Interstate 80 in Wyoming until Tuesday. The Wyoming Highway Patrol said the crashes happened around 3:40 p.m. Sunday, 1 near mile marker 181 and 1 near mile marker 184. So there were 2 accidents, 2 pileups, 100 cars in total. 30 people were rushed to the hospital for treatment. Some of these injuries are non-life threatening. But just to give you an idea here, 54 out of 152 days of the road being closed, the highway that is, this year has been so hard on everybody. The Wyoming Highway Patrol said that I can't believe how many times the interstate has been closed down. They got some numbers for that perspective. 2018 and 19 saw 47 closures. The 2017-18 season saw 34 closures, and 2016 and 17 season saw 52 closures, with 2015 and 16 with 54 closures. So at this point right now, they probably will get at least one more good snow out there. Looks like we might have number 55 on the horizon as far as closures on that highway. And a little article here. CNN says, end of snow, climate change is threatening winter sports very existence. Wow. Nice little cartoon here. As much of the USA experienced an abundance of the white stuff, CNN picked this as a good time to make an end of snow prediction. And look, yeah, the last 2 years have been a lot more eventful with storms after storm after storm. We know that in the UK. We know that here in the Northeast. This year was just more of a steady 3 to 6 inches here more often than just that one giant storm. So we went through December and most of January kind of eventless. And then it started to pick up late January, and most of February we see lots of snow falling coast to coast. But here we go. CNN, a warming planet has major ramifications on winter snowpack across the globe, including a long-term dying trend for many. That's a concern for the winter sports enthusiasts and communities that depend on snow throughout the year. Not many understand this better than the climate advocacy, if I could say that, advocacy group known as Protect Our Winters. Guys, we want to thank you for putting up I sound like the Joe Biden of Grand Solar Minimum up here with all my gaffes. My goodness. The group is an organization of professional... I know, I'm sorry, Bella. The group is an organization of professional athletes and like-minded individuals fighting for policy to protect winter sports and mountain communities. Increased temperatures are melting away both my sport and my livelihood, says professional ski mountaineer and POW representative Caroline Leach. Hey, that's enough. There's plenty of snow, trust me. This year has been the prime example of what is becoming more common. Snowfall has been abysmal in California this winter. A statewide snowpack is running far below average to date. There is little relief in sight before the season ends. This is a stark comparison of last year when California was walloped with above average snowfall, ended with a season of 175% of average by April 1st. It's this variability that leaves many wondering what the long-term trends are indicating. If climate science holds true, the winter whiplash could put many out of business as low snow years mount. Climate catastrophes just can't help themselves. Their models predict a hothouse world in their lifetime, so they see every glitch of variation in conditions as evidence the great temperature acceleration has begun, and endlessly embarrass themselves with their wild end of snow predictions. I agree with that statement wholeheartedly, and we will probably see the difference next February in 2021. I'll eat my hat if I'm wrong. That's how confident I am in that, I guess, right? All right, what does that actually mean anyway? All right, taking a look at Northeast begins the week in mild air. Thank God, I'm ready for some warmer weather. Folks, I don't know about you, but it's time, man. The winter was cold up here in the Northeast. We didn't see crazy cold, but we saw winter conditions for the most of the year. We had snow on the ground, ice on the ground. I mean, the snow's finally starting to melt up here. Temperatures will be 10 to 20 degrees above average in the Northeast early this week. Colder temperatures will arrive late in the week from a jet stream disturbance that will also bring snow and rain. A storm off the East Coast bears watching for the possibility of more significant impacts in the Northeast Friday into Saturday. Let's go ahead and check that out real quick here at the... Now let's go to Mari. Mari hooked me up here, so that way we can see it all. All right, so here's the GFS outlook. Right now we got some rain moving through the Northeast, the Ohio Valley, Kentucky, through the South. Some snow in parts of the northern plain states, very light, if any at all. By Wednesday, this majority of this rain will be moved into the Northeast, the Atlantic states. Some snow is possible on the back end of this, but not a lot of snow. Now, what I want to watch here is all this rain here in the South. This storm that's developing in the South on Thursday heads off to the East Coast. Barely links up with another system in the north and will bring some light snow to the Northeast by Friday and Saturday. That's when the temperatures will take a dip. Now, what they're watching is this low pressure system. Will this thing come back in towards the mainland or continue its trek the way it is right now, which is driving off to the Atlantic states and just lightly brushing the East Coast with some snow? We will watch as we get closer. After that storm, though, only the cold stays in the Northeast, it seems. Mild temperatures in the northern plain states briefly. The Northwest is cold, the Northeast is cold, but the rest of the country is spring-like, and another cold front is behind this system here that's going to bring rain to the Ohio Valley, mainly for Kentucky, Tennessee, and the South once again. Some snow showers possible for the northern part of this storm on March 12th, Thursday. It is cold enough in the Northeast that we could see some snow along the I-95 corridor. Again, this changed from this morning's forecast outlook. We looked like it had a pretty good chance. And we get to the 18Z, and of course, it's gone again. So more rain than snow across the middle part of the country, across the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee, and the South, the Northeast as well. Well, let's take a look at some totals that we're going to see here from the precipitation, the rain, the snow. Rain, here we go, total accumulation. That's what I want. So here across the South, everyone's asking, what are we looking at precipitation-wise? Well, almost an inch or more for Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, Mississippi already by Tuesday. And then as we get deeper into the week, the rain accumulation continues to pick up. And then we start to see that 3 to 4 inches, guys. This is just by this week, by the end of the week. So we could see in some areas that get what they get in a month, they'll get this in about 4 days. 4.5 inches of rain is possible for parts of Georgia and South Carolina as well. And then as we move into Saturday and Sunday, they get a little bit of a break and another system moves through by midweek next week, adding on to those rain totals. I mean, just saturated in the South, guys, from Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Arkansas, parts of Missouri, parts of Oklahoma. Will start off the month of March very, very, very wet. Thankfully, the majority of that rain is off to the East Coast. And the farmlands, well, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, the Dakotas, parts of Minnesota will have some heavy rain. But for the most part, we're getting what we should get this time of year. The question is, how much more extreme does our weather get over the next several weeks? Right now, it's looking like we're heading into a spring-like pattern. And that is okay, too. Last year, we had a late plant. Will we see that again this year and this spring? I hope not. Cold air, is it gone? Well, let's take a look. Here at the end of February, giving it a last push. March temperatures look pretty mild across the United States, and I mean 40s and 30s and some 50s, nothing hot. We do get an indication of some colder air coming back to the Great Lakes in the Northeast by March 7th, but then we start to see a warm up and a huge patch of cold air moving across Canada, but this warmer air is definitely keeping that at bay right now as we speak. We might see a late March blast of colder air in the Northeast, but check this out, guys. By March 18th, 50s and 60s will be pretty much inundating most of the Ohio Valley, most of the Midwest, some of the parts of the Northeast as well could be in the 50s and 60s. So looking at this weather map, I feel like we got a good chance of seeing some spring-like temperatures by the end of March for most of us here across the Midwest and the Northern Plains states as well. We could see some spring-like temperatures by the end of the month. Now let's take a look at our friends across the pond. We see lots of rain and snow in Italy. More rain to the UK, the Ireland, Scotland region, Norway and Sweden still getting more snow, and then another wave of low pressure inundates the northern parts of Italy with more snow and rain in the Alps. This is Friday, March 6th. More rain showers again by the 8th of March for the UK, as we have a couple systems here just kind of spinning out of control and doing whatever they want. And then a pretty big cold front to happen here mid-March that could mix rain and snow, mainly snow in the higher elevations here. Some pretty heavy snow being indicated here in the Swiss and in the Alps as well. So lots to watch here in Europe, and of course Italy getting its share of moisture, not just rain, but snow as well. And then check this out. By March 18th, the GFS is indicating snow showers from the majority of the UK, which I know this isn't really what you guys were expecting this year, but this is what we're being dealt with. Temperature is still pretty cold for this time of year, the 30s and 40s in Fahrenheit, but we're at 1 and 0 degrees Celsius for the most part. And what are the temperatures looking like here in the UK and European nations? Well, about as average as they are here in the States, honestly. Some areas may be a little bit warmer, some areas might be a little colder, but I think the consensus can agree with this, that we are going to be dealing with average temperatures for Europe and the United States over the next 8 to 14 days, definitely for sure. So season's acting pretty normal so far. The question is, how wet, how much moisture are we going to see, and are we going to see a late plant like we did in 2019? All right, that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Thank you for tuning in to our late edition of the Grand Solar Minimum channel. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another update on our Grand Solar Minimum news. Until then, everyone have a great evening, and we will talk soon. Take care.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.